Hi, Becky. Is there anybody else here other than Becky tonight? Welcome to the live. I think you'll find tonight's information very interesting, and I'll get started at 5 after. Hi, Bruno. Glad you're with us. I hope everybody had a good day. Thank you, Becky. I didn't get a chance to eat supper, so I was cramming a chocolate chip cookie into my mouth while I was doing the countdown to start the live tonight. What are you guys having for supper, or did you already have supper? I'm going to have a sweet potato and a couple pieces of Spam and a salad with balsamic vinaigrette on it, made out of balsamic vinegar, honey, and that garlic Mrs. Dash that you got me, Becky. Well, it's not Mrs. Dash. I can't think of what it's called, but the salt-free seasoning. So I'm looking forward to that. My sweet potatoes in the oven right now. Cornmeal soup. Is that the same as like what we would call cornmeal mush? Because I like that. Nice frugal meal. Cabbage and Polish sausage. I will add some corn on the cob for Johnny and boiled potatoes. Oh, that sounds good. I love cabbage. Yummy, yummy, yummy. So the weather has been so incredibly warm here for about 4 days. It's just been amazing. Like, what a change. Yeah, Bruno, that's a great meal. Nice and frugal. Sometimes some of those extremely frugal things taste the best to me. I'm a real old-fashioned cook. Okay, we're at 3 after, and again, I'll give it till 5 after. Hi, Rebecca. Corned beef roast, roasted carrots, and potato salad. That sounds good. I've never had potato salad with corned beef roast before. Bruno says, I made it on the runny side, more like a soup. Awesome. Becky says, our weather is pouring rain, turning into snow. Well, I know you love rain, and hopefully it doesn't turn into like a freezing mix before it turns to snow. Okay, guys, we'll go ahead and get started. As you guys know, I wanted my monthly expenses to be less than December. That's usually the way it figures out. We don't have Christmas, so why should it be the same, or why should it be more? Well, that's not always how things work, and we'll talk about what they were and why. So I'm not going to do the full breakdown of each monthly bill this time because I did that last time. I'll just tell you if one of them was different this month. But my monthly bills for January came to $617.47. That was a little bit less than the month before because I had overpaid on my internet/home telephone bill. So they sent me a bill for 1 cent this month. That was it. And as a reminder, my heat, which is pellets, and my house taxes I figure that out how much it costs monthly, and I put that money away every month so that when those come due, we already have the money set aside for them. It's not like an emergency that way. So last month, for comparison, my monthly bills were $746.89, and this month $617.47. So those were a little bit less, which was a blessing. Now the food category, that's like food, hygiene, household, some of Sloopy's dog food, like if she runs out of dog food in between a Chewy order, stuff like that. That came to $856.01 for the month, and that averaged $214 a week. Now, this is kind of strange because we did not have anything we wanted to eat this month. We tried to be very careful with what we picked up, whereas last month we just got everything and anything we wanted for the Christmas season. Last month, our average was $219.80. We really didn't save that much. And when talking about that, we think the difference was as soon as January hit, there was not any normal foods on sale that we would normally eat. It was like all higher end things that the average person wouldn't eat. And I think our grocery prices went up quite a bit from December to January, but I haven't had a chance to slow down and price compare each item. I'm going to do that in an upcoming video so that we can see if I was to buy the same items right now versus in December, what the cost difference would be. So that was kind of disappointing, but it is what it is. That's not a category we get too upset about because we keep our monthly bills so low. And we also feed more than the three of us. We kind of feed the multitudes off of that money. It's kind of just what we do. Like we'll feed anybody and everybody, basically. So I'm not going to try to get that as rock bottom as I can. I'm just going to be aware of it and continue the way I'm continuing. Let me take a minute and catch up on comments here. Oh, okay. Well, everyone's just saying hi to everyone. Love seeing that. Okay, now gifts. Well, you should have nothing for gifts because it wasn't Christmas season, but I did have $55.96 on gifts. And here's why. I picked up one gift for a friend that was just because. And then I picked up one gift for my son for next Christmas because I found something at a amazing deal that I would never be able to top, which was exactly what I knew he wanted to the T. And I wasn't going to wait to see if they had it next year at a higher price. So $55.96 on that. Then I picked up a pair of shoes for myself in the miscellaneous category. And these were 50% off, and I paid $25. Now, you might be kind of laughing, thinking like, yeah, shoes. I'm sure you needed shoes. That's like a want, not a need. Wait till I show you. So when I'm around home, I always wear sneakers. I'm on my feet a lot and in and out of the house, and I need sneakers. So this month, I don't know if you can see that, but that's the shape of my sneakers. That's after I had glued them once and continued to wear them the last time it happened. I can put my hand most of the way through there. They were also ripped along the back, ripped along here. They had had it. I'm not throwing them away. I will glue it again, and these will be my four-wheeling, hiking, in the garden, anytime that I'm not wearing gum rubbers, rough it kind of shoes. So then what I did was I took my shoes that I had been wearing to town and to church, and I moved them over to the at-home shoe category for every day, so that my new shoes I can use for going out in church. And these are my new shoes. They are Eastland shoes, very expensive shoes. These were over $50 normally. So a well-made shoe that should last me for a long time. So the shoes were actually a need, not a want. So $25 for them. And I did shop around in order to find what I wanted at a good price. And yes, it was time for some new shoes. Then we splurged on a heater for power outages, like a K1 heater. And we paid $185 for the heater, and that included the purchase of one of the big jugs of K1 to go with that. And the reason why we decided that we wanted that was, with Corey being on the night shift now, we were thinking after the last power outage, if the power was to go out and it was like a below zero night and I really couldn't go without the heat because of like pipes freezing or something like that, it would be very hard for me to get the generator pulled out onto the deck, get it hooked up the way it needs to be hooked, do the pull start on it. That just would be very hard for me. Whereas the heater would be super quick and easy for me just to get out and get started. So that is why we purchased that. And we're excited about that, because in the past with him on days, it wasn't a problem because he would have been at home at night if the weather was super cold and we needed some heat in a power outage. Bruno says, I do that to my shoes too. I keep mending them until they can't take it anymore. Then I keep them as work shoes in the garden. Yeah. And like if I'm painting on the house or something like that, I don't want to ruin my good shoes. Becky says, those are nice, good brand. Glad you bought them. Yeah. I really did want to in January, but you can't help when your shoes get to that point. And I have some real serious leg and feet problems. I can't like just wear cheap shoes or slippers or something like that around the house. In fact, when I was a baby, I had to wear those metal leg braces that go like from your hips all the way down and hook to your feet. So it's just not funny for me to be walking around in worn out shoes. We had one stop off the interstate this month traveling up to my grandmother's, and we had said we weren't going to. We were just going to make sure we did not. And my husband got sick and he had to pull off the interstate and go get some juice and stuff like that. And that came to $16. So our miscellaneous category was $226. Now, this is before the emergencies. We would have spent $1,865.65 in comparison to the month before, which was $2,470.92. So it looks like we were doing super good and still had the bonus of the new shoes and the heater. But emergencies. The battery that went in the pickup was $180. Then right after that, Corey had to do some body work on the pickup, and he spent $30.32 on some stuff for that. Then we had that transmission problem with the line and the cooler and the expensive oil and stuff for it. And that ended up coming to $780.35. That was all with doing the work himself. We thought the transmission one was actually going to be more, so super excited about that. Long story short, he did not need everything he bought for that job and was able to return whatever was left over. And that gave us like $180 back. So that job would have been closer to $1,000. So thankful for that. But $990.67 was our emergencies for the month. And that's why I say I don't think that $1,000 emergency fund that the professionals or whatever suggest is enough, because I know when we have trouble all at once, and we go through 1,000 just like that. And with always making sure we have a minimum of 3,000, then we can still take a couple more hits like that without it being all that serious. If you had to pay somebody to do the work, I don't even want to know what that emergency would cost, those emergencies for the month. And that's something to consider if you do pay work done, usually. And also, if you had to put that on a credit card, can you imagine? Like, you probably wouldn't even get it paid up by the end of the year with the interest rate before you had another emergency. So, very, very important on the emergency fund. And I'm glad that we kept our cost lower than the month before, because that helped out with the emergency fund. Because guess what, guys? We never had to touch our savings at all on that $990.67. We just had enough setting in our regular money to cover that emergency. And if you're watching on the playback, I think everybody here already heard me talk about the envelope system last month. If you don't know about the one envelope system that I use, I talked about that in last month's video, and you can check that out. But basically, that $990.67 would be what was left in the one envelope system that just, we didn't spend it. If we don't need it, we don't spend it. And this does not include any of my donations. I will never, ever, ever tell anybody what our donations add up to in a month. But our grand total, including everything and those emergencies, came to $2,856.32 for January. Oh, Johnny wore braces like that as a child. I didn't know that. Yeah, and Becky has to have good shoes too. Okay, guys, what do you think? Do you have anything you want to say or question me about? Or we just started doing these videos. This is the second month. I'm not really sure what all you guys want, other than all of that very real, personal information with the actual numbers. I hope that helps somebody a lot, that I'm giving the actual numbers. That's my hopes. Bruno says the envelope system is a great tip. Never heard of that before. You did really good. Thank you. Like I say, I think my mother come up with that on her own. Like, she never heard it anywhere, but I don't know if anybody else had thought of it before her or not. For bowed legs. Okay. Yeah. I have like turned in foot, one leg shorter than the other. And it's like partially a drop foot. It's not too bad, but I do have to pull it up. Like, think about it. Pull it up, twist it this way, and walk forward. So I can remember prying them off on the crib. Like, it's a memory that I have, like getting them between the rungs of the crib and ripping those off. I hated those things so bad. Becky, I am so glad and shocked to hear that. Oh, I should tell you guys, when I'm tracking this stuff, the easiest way that I have found to do that is one of these pocket calendars. I can't remember if I told you guys that last month, but it makes it so easy because you can slip it right into your purse or whatever. And if you want to know exactly what you've spent dollar for dollar, like if you're really struggling and you need to take the time to track it, this is great because you can just fill in on the dates what you spent where, and at a glance, you can face the fact either you're overspending or you're not. Just by even seeing how many days you've spent money can be shocking sometimes. I think that the most important thing is to make sure that people aren't spending more than what they have. But I would love to see everybody be debt free and to be having that emergency savings. Like, those are my biggest goals for my viewers. I've been just seeing so many homeless people on YouTube, and it breaks my heart. And I know things are really rough right now, but if you can save, then it helps for times like this when the economy stinks. Just an envelope or just my regular wallet, because it's not like I have any other money in there. Sometimes, like if my grandmother gives me like Christmas money, I'll fold it in half and like stick it in a different place in my wallet. So like Corey and I have it if we want to stop and get a snack or something while we're out. That's usually what we use her Christmas money for. But whatever you want to put it in, basically you just know that's all the money you have other than your bills and savings. Yes, Corey, I was a rebel kid. And another thing too, and I didn't put it on the monthly bills, is Corey and I get spending money, but we don't spend it. So it's not like I had to total it up as money spent. He's still walking around with his, and I'm still walking around with mine. Honestly, half the time I don't even get mine out in cash and use it at all. It's just in case we see something we really want to save up for, or we really, really, really want, or in case we decide we really, really want to go somewhere and it's not in our normal budget, but we just don't spend it. Like, you guys know the last time that we went out to eat was Thanksgiving week, and we ended up getting a piece of pizza each from the convenience store, and I got a donut from Tim Hortons and a coffee. And we had like $60 from Graham and we spent like 10. We just don't spend money like that. Um, so, you know, some people do, and then the allowance comes in even handier because they're not overspending in places that they shouldn't be. But I don't know. I think maybe when we were younger, it helped more because we probably spent more, but not now. There's nothing that either of us need or want. Oh, Becky. Oh my goodness, you guys. I wish Marissa would come on to one of these sometime with me. You want to talk about frugal? I have seen her do $10 a week in groceries and feel like she has got everything she wants. She is super frugal. Like, I am somewheres in between. I don't want to spend unnecessarily, but if we can afford to have a good amount of healthy food in the cupboards, I'm thrilled. But you guys are being super quiet again tonight. I go on these other lives and people are talking, 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 and you guys are so quiet. Bruno says, I allow myself to spend $20 a month on a little treat or a few treats throughout the month. And you can see that's about what we did. It wasn't a treat, but $16 on the stop off the interstate. That was what we did. He did, when he stopped to get himself juice and stuff, he did get me a raspberry iced tea and one for my grandmother. Becky says, yes, she needs to share her ways. Here's Marissa. Thankfully, I am starting from a place of having a back stock at home. Yeah. But Marissa also could go forage for most of her food. And then, of course, like, people hunting, fishing, stuff like that, you get that added into the mix. Even if you're not the one hunting or fishing, friends and family members that hunt and fish and they want to share that with you. If you really have to eat super, super frugally, it's amazing what you can scrounge that's for free if you just pay attention. Now, Marissa and I went thrift shopping, I don't know, 3 weeks ago or something like that. And as we were entering into the thrift store, down the hallway, they had all these boxes of extra food, I'm guessing from the food cupboard, with a sign, please take any of this if you need it. At my grandmother's, in their laundromat, they have everybody bring in all their extra stuff that they don't want, whether it be food, clothes, whatever, to share with each other, a book that they read. There are so many things, food or otherwise, that's available out there if you're in need, if you just pray about it and see what comes your way before going and spending unnecessarily, or if you're not in need, just waiting a little bit before you go out to buy to see if something might come up. Like our furniture and stuff, we usually don't need to buy stuff like that. There's always a family member who's like, oh, I'm sick of this one or whatever. Do you want this? Corey's grandmother used to get like a new couch every 2 years, and she would just be like, here, take this. Here, take this. And now we're to the point, our couch is getting pretty worn, but Corey said that I could get a new couch, and I thought that I was going to in the fall. And then I thought, why am I going to go get a new couch? Sloopy's going to be laying all over the couch. She's going to come in muddy, everything. She's going to want to get on the couch. So I'm going to keep the covers on the couch because of her. And I do like a full cover and then like a quilted cover. And then I put like a blanket down for her. So I thought, why am I going to go spend that money on a new couch just because mine looks terrible when I'm going to be covering it anyway? So we're not getting a new couch. Sometimes it's funny. You think you want something really bad, like especially if you think it's out of reach. But then when you realize you could afford it and you could have it, you think, I'm not spending my money on that. That's insane. I'm not doing that. Like, what I have is just fine. Becky says, my family is fed well. Becky, I wish you could have seen everyone at the church dinner yesterday. You want to talk about adorable. There is no group of people that I cook for that are more appreciative or love the food that I give them more than my church people. It's just such a joy. Like, one of the things that I do that I think makes the most difference is just feeding people. Bruno says, I do some frugal things that I'm even ashamed to think about. I'll have to think about that for a moment and see if I have any that fall into that category that cracks me up so much. I definitely do frugal things that other people don't understand, and I don't realize it until, like, specifically my mother comes over and she'll want to help me or whatever in the kitchen, and I'll be sitting there thinking she's using way too much hot water, she's squeezing way too much dish soap out. Um, Stupid stuff like that, and I think, "Oh my gosh, I am, like, so frugal, and I'm so used to working alone, and nobody even understands me." Um, Becky says, "Don't be ashamed, Donna." Okay, Becky, let's hear it. Do you have anything frugal that you do that you might be ashamed of? I really have to think about this. Maybe Corey can tell you one that I do. I'm really stumped on this. I'm thinking what could be so shameful. Oh my goodness. Marissa says, one of the things that my two grandmothers used to do when they were raising their families was to go in together to buy something and split it between the families. My grandmother and her friend Gloria were talking about that a couple weeks ago. Um, Gloria said to Graham, "Do you remember when the kids were little and we'd work together to scrounge up enough stuff for their Christmas stockings? You'd have this and I'd have that, and together we'd get those kids' stockings filled." And one time they shared a car amongst many families. They bought it together and all took turns with that. Marissa says this allowed them to buy at bulk prices without having to take on the whole price as one family. It's genius. One time when Marissa was a kid, Corey was working in the woods, but they were logging out of a road that ran alongside of a potato field. So I think the potato farmer owned the land they were cutting off of. So the farmer told Corey when it came digging time, he said, "Hey, those potatoes are ready. And before we dig, go ahead and take a pitchfork and turn up unlimited amounts, whatever you want, and take all the potatoes you want home." So every night when Corey got done work, he'd turn up potatoes and he would bag them up and he'd bring them home. And I'd sort them here. And he kept going like that. Well, it ended up we had tons of potatoes for the winter, but we didn't have much else. So I was talking to Marissa's mother, and she said, "Well, we have rice upon rice upon rice, and we don't have any potatoes. And wouldn't we love to have potatoes?" So I switched her some of the potatoes for some of the rice. Now, I couldn't afford to buy the rice, and she already had the rice and couldn't afford to buy the potatoes. And it was a win-win. It gave both families a variety. Uh, I would have loved to have been there to experience it, Becky says. And Bruno says, that's a great idea. And Becky says, I cut my own hair and most of my family. Yep, we do not pay any cut our hair. My hair is naturally curly, so even if I don't get it cut straight, you can't tell. It just, the curls cover it. Corey cuts his own. I used to cut Jacob's, but now he prefers to cut his own. Okay, Bruno gives himself a haircut. No shame there. Oh, yeah, that's hard when you can't tell on the back. That's the one thing my son does is he'll come to me and say, "Can you just check my neck?" Uh, Here's a funny one. I'm still trying to think of things that I'm ashamed of. my husband's company that he worked for many, many years would put us or all the workers up into the Hilton Garden Inn for overnight during the Christmas season, and they would have a big fancy meal for everybody and their wives in the ballroom of the hotel, and everybody dressed so fancy, new outfits, new, going to get their hair professionally done and everything. And I showed up in a dress that Mom had gotten me from a sale clearance off of Blair or something. It was a turquoise suit and it looked very expensive, but she had managed to get it on a sale for $12. Well, I wanted something to make it look a little Christmassier, where it was turquoise and not red or Christmas green or something like that. So I had some of that Christmas yarn, and it was white with like silver in it. So I crocheted myself a pearl looking necklace out of the yarn. And it was beautiful. And I loved the way it looked with the dress. And at a thrift store, I had found like a little nativity pin, and I put that on the lapel of my suit jacket. And I don't think anybody thought too much of it, but there's this one lady, and Marissa knows this lady too. And she always thought maybe she might be a little bit better than me. I kind of knew her in my regular life outside of the fact that our husbands worked together. And partway through the party, she says, "Is that yarn?" She was horrified, but I wasn't. But maybe I should be ashamed. I mean, I don't know, but I was wearing a pearl necklace crocheted out of yarn. I was quite proud that I had done it myself. Oh, Bruno, I have done the sewing thread. I don't always do the sewing thread, but I'm not going to sew and have a leftover piece of thread and not floss with it. Maybe this is turning into a frugal confessional. Hi, Helena M. Glad you're here. Are you a frugal person? Because these confessions are hysterical so far. Okay, Bruno says, I water down 1 dish detergent, Dawn, into a gallon of water with 3 cups of washing soda. Awesome. I used to water it down with ammonia. That is awesome. You want to see the necklace? Oh my gosh, I don't know where that thing is. I used to be in the bedroom upstairs, and then we moved to the bedroom downstairs, and it was way small, so I just moved down like the essential stuff that I thought I needed in there, and that other room is a storage area. So I bet it's up there, but I have no idea where. If I run into it when we sheetrock up there, I'll set it aside. Bruno's laughing. What about you, Becky and Marissa? Have you ever flossed your teeth with thread? One of them that Marissa and I try to remember to do, and I do it for a while and then I forget, is if you're going to throw away worn out clothes, cut all the buttons off of them. It's amazing how often you need a button for something and how expensive they are and impossible to find the exact button that you need. Walmart never has very many options for us, and that's all we have for a store that we can get that kind of stuff. And it's not a big Walmart, so we might have like the same button, the same size, and 4 different colors, and that's all we can get a hold of. mending clothes. I mend and mend and mend and mend and mend and mend clothes, and especially the guys' work clothes. And at Christmas, I got Jacob a couple new long sleeve Dickie work shirts, and he won't wear them. He said, why am I going to take that to work, those new shirts, and have hydraulic fluid spraying all over me and catch them on stuff and rip them? He's like, just mend my old ones. And when I cannot wear them anymore, I will take some of them I've been wearing for good and move them down. But his ones that I have mended are getting so thin, there's hardly anything to mend to. So I think I'm going to be watching the thrift store for some used ones for him, since he refuses to wear the new ones to work. Yeah, and also you can have kids do crafts and stuff out of them. My great grandmother's button jar was like one of my favorite activities. She'd give me a piece of thread and have me make a necklace out of them. Marissa, I am ashamed of you if you haven't ever flossed with thread. Saving metal zippers from clothes. Yep. And I don't think I do that, but what I have done is, like, if somebody gives me a pair of pants or skirt or something with a zipper in it that I'm never going to wear, I might take that zipper out and make a purse or something using the zipper. But I'm sure I have more embarrassing frugal things that I do, but it's hard to come up with them on the spot. I don't like to buy a bunch of cleaning items. That's a big thing with me. Like, I cannot stand to go into the store and see the price of all those different cleaning products for every a different product for everything. Like, most of the time I'm just going with dish soap and hot water. That's my preference. Sometimes something needs a little something extra. Becky says she waters down milk for drinking and cooking. Me too. If I buy a whole milk, I can water that down to 1/4 of it being milk and the rest water, for cooking and stuff. And canned milk gets watered down extremely. Um, I can't use a dime size of shampoo, even though as I'm aging, my hair is getting a little thinner than it was. I have so much hair that no, and I'm using baby shampoo right now, and that has helped my hair to start growing back along here where I had lost it when I had COVID. But it takes me like a quarter of a big thing of baby shampoo to wash my hair. So I just don't wash my hair as often, is all. Like, I use a lot and wash it really well, put it on there, let it soak in a lot because the baby shampoo doesn't clean as well. Rinse it and then go as long as I can before I have to wash it again. It would be wonderful if I could use a dime size drop. I'm probably using a full cup of shampoo to get my hair clean. Um, Bruno says, I can't believe people are spending that much money on expensive cleaning products. No, neither can I. Like, a good dish soap will basically clean everything. I take dish soap and a magic eraser sheet. I buy the sheets instead of the sponges now, because I can get like hundreds of sheets for hardly anything on Amazon. I take one of those and a bucket of hot soapy water and I scrub my windows. And then I take a squeegee from Dollar Tree, and my windows have never been so clean. And when I was a kid, I was taught Windex and paper towels. You go through so many paper towels and so much Windex. Every time you step back, you've got a streak on the window. And I've got Sloopy, who's out there in the mud, and she's jumping and sliding down the French doors. There's no way I'm going to get that clean with a special glass cleaner. Becky says she doesn't reuse toilet paper. Good to know. Good to know. This is bad. I don't know if you guys have seen those blue mechanics towels. Like, I think they're called tub of towels or something, but like they're a super, super thick blue paper towel. Well, sometimes the guys use those like at work to like clean up their hands after they've been broke down or whatever, and they'll stuff it and button it down into like a shirt pocket or something. So I'll wash the laundry and that will be in the pocket and it'll go through the wash. And when I'm hanging up the laundry, I'll find it. So I just hang it up to dry. And then they can reuse that on something greasy, or I can reuse that to clean up some super nasty mess because it's clean and it washes clean. And it seems so ridiculous, but it doesn't disintegrate in the wash. And I end up with them all the time. Becky says, I don't own paper towels, use rags for cleaning and bandanas for napkins. I like the bandanas for napkins. I have tons of cloth napkins. That thing of paper towels we got after Thanksgiving, that will last us for years. I will put a paper towel down if I'm frying like a couple pounds of bacon to soak up the extra grease. I never used to, but now we're getting older and we don't want to eat that grease. Sometimes Slippy has a ton of dog hair all over the bottom of the toilet in the bathroom, and it's like condensation, and I'm wiping it with rags and I can't get it off, and I'll get a few paper towels for that. That's it. If I'm deep frying, I use brown paper bags from the grocery store. I cut them open into a sheet and turn them inside out so like the ink isn't there. And like if I make French fries or whatever, I'll put them out onto the paper bag, which will absorb the grease. For some reason with the bacon, though, it doesn't seem to do that. I used to have such a small income and be so cheap. This might be embarrassing, Bruno. You might like this one. Corey's family would get together on Christmas Eve every year, and they would have me make a big roaster-sized pan of lasagna. And because we didn't have a lot of money, his grandmother would give me the money to go to the grocery store to get the ingredients. But we were so poor, I'd make the lasagna and I wouldn't have anything to cover it with to transport it over to her house. And so I would cut a brown paper bag into a sheet and lay it over the top of the lasagna and tie that paper bag onto that roaster just to get it over to her house. And I don't remember her giving me any books, but I can remember Corey's mother looking at me like, you have got to be kidding me. This is the dumbest, strangest thing I have ever seen. But I didn't have the money to get the aluminum foil. And I wasn't going to spend the money she got me to get the ingredients on a thing of aluminum foil. But it's amazing, seriously, how many ways when you don't have money, you can figure out to get by. And then when you do, you're like, well, I didn't spend on that before and I'm not spending now. Oh, and Becky, rags. Yes, we have so many rags. We have one container that's like this caddy stuffed in the kitchen closet. Then underneath one of the cupboards, I have this big plastic bin that's full, and it's full way past the bin all the way up to the top. You can never have enough rags because I wash them in with the guys' work clothes and keep reusing them, but then sometimes you got to do something really nasty where you can't reuse them. Marissa saves lint from the dryer to start a fire. Yep, I have a pellet stove, so I don't need to start a fire like that. But yes, that does work good. Um, Vinegar and newspaper is what Mom had us clean the windows with. I've never done that, but I'm sure it's fine. Um, I have used newspaper on the pellet stove glass, but I didn't use vinegar. I would just wet it, dip it in the fly ash from the pellet stove, and scrub the inside of the glass that was sooty, and it would take it right off, no cleaners or anything. So I'm sure the vinegar on that would work on the windows. Newspapers. We don't buy newspapers, we don't subscribe to newspapers, but for some reason, we get this newspaper print catalog. The whole thing is newspaper print, about that thick, that's like on logging equipment constantly. And I save that for cleaning and starting campfires and stuff. Bruno says, it's amazing how we can be so creative and resourceful. Yes, it is. Um, okay, Becky said she made a tuna can into a skip it for the girls when they were little, which is a toy, and Barbie clothes out of socks. I love that. When I was a kid, my great grandmother had a rag bag, and that particular rag bag wasn't for cleaning. It was like from when she was sewing, and she'd have little bits of fabric left. And she had one of the off brand Barbies in the rag bag, and she'd send us into the spare room to play with the Barbie in the rag bag. And even though we didn't sew, we could get so excited over the different fabrics, and we could tie it into a skirt, around the waist of Barbie, and or tie it into a dress, and we could tie a little piece into a scarf or a headband or whatever. We could play all day with those scrap pieces of fabric and an off-brand Barbie. Well, you guys have had a lot of awesome ideas. I'm still waiting though for somebody to share something with me that I find embarrassing, because so far I'm like, yeah, you guys are awesome. Well, all right, guys, it's about an hour, but it's getting close, so we'll try to wrap it up around the 1 hour point. Bruno says sewing is a great skill to save money. It is, and I sew some, but not to the extent that I would like to know how to sew. Now, Marissa is an amazing seamstress, which reminds me, Marissa, you have got to look at my Easter dress before Easter, because when I wore it last Easter, it was not fitting me right for the first time. And I don't know why it's sitting on my body like that. And I need you to take a look at it. Marissa can make her own patterns. She can sew anything out of anything. I have seen her make beautiful dresses out of old sheets. It's just amazing. And for me, I can do a little altering. I could sew some basic stuff that don't require a pattern. My mother can sew amazing, but she's never taught me everything that she knows yet. She lives about 45 minutes away from me, and I just have not had any free time in my life to where I could take like one day a week and go to her house and do like a sewing project with her, or quite a few of them. We've talked about it for probably 10 years, but it hasn't happened yet. Becky says, also, when a bar of soap is too little to use, press it to the new bar after it's wet and it sticks well. Yeah, and I like to take a wet washcloth, lay that sliver on there, fold that washcloth over, and then just use the washcloth with it sandwiched in between. That's another way. Some people save them all and grate them and melt them down and reform them into a bar too. When money's tight, I never buy everybody their own kind of soap. Like, yes, Jacob likes one kind of soap and Corey likes one kind of soap, and I like a certain kind of soap. Of course, now I make soap. I didn't used to. But if money was tight, I would get a soap that worked for everybody. Like, it didn't really smell like a guy and it didn't really smell like a girl. It was just something basic, like maybe Ivory or Palm Olive or something like that, that everybody could use. Because yes, it doesn't really cost more because each person's only going to use what they're going to use, but it costs more if you don't have the money to buy it all at once. So a lot of things like that can really help out. I used to go in with like $25 a week for groceries for many, many years. That's all I had, period. There was nothing else to scrape up. So it was like, what can I do to make it work? Bruno says, thank you so much for this conversation. You guys are amazing. I feel better now. You know, there's a difference between being frugal and being cheap. And being cheap is you don't care about anybody else, and being frugal is, you just don't want to spend money unnecessarily. Becky says, save the salt in the pretzels, a great way to salt food. I did that. And Corey was like, what is wrong with this salt? I poured it into just the regular salt shaker. And he's like, what is wrong with this salt? This salt is so big and so salty. I never told him. I was just like, I don't know. Becky says she could do this all day. Becky likes to take an SOS pad and pop it into the freezer so she can reuse it because you know how they rust. I like to lay mine on a sponge, just a plain sponge will also keep it from rusting. If I put it in the freezer, Becky, my guys would probably be trying to eat it, thinking it's some kind of cookie or something. Bruno says, oh, I remember one. I usually go to the farmer's market by the end of the day, and I ask them if there's anything they will throw out that I can buy for a better price. I usually get a lot of free stuff. That's great. Yeah, that goes back to the look around and see what's available. Becky says, I use castor oil for moisturizer. So many benefits. Nessa has been on a kick about castor oil too. I've never bought it. I've never used it. My obsession is the cocoa butter, like Vaseline, but the off-brand from Dollar Tree. I use it as lotion. I use it as chapstick. I use it to lubricate the inside of my ears. Like, I am obsessed with that cocoa butter Vaseline. Okay, guys, we are at the 1 hour point. I hope everybody had a good time tonight. It's so fun to learn from each other. And If you guys want, we'll keep doing this every month, all year long, and we'll share frugal tips at the end of each one. I'm sure we can all come up with more, and maybe we can think about what Bruno was saying before the next one on things that we do that actually would be considered embarrassing, because I'm sure I have quite a list. Okay, guys, I'm going to go get my supper. Bye.